it's very, it's super, it was super, I use the word scary, but I guess not scary because I'm really not afraid of much, but it was a challenge not to take it too lightly. And it was a challenge not to make, you know, because there's a spectrum of Holocaust movies. One end of the spectrum, I would say Jojo Rabbit, Life is Beautiful, you know, films that take a lighter approach to it, almost a comedic approach to it, where, you know, you are, you know, you're told, and they have a full right to be those films. And then there are like really heavy, tragic, realistic, dramatic films, you know, such as Son of Saul, I guess, Schindler's List, Shoah, all that, where you know, on the other end of the spectrum. So my end, my film, I'll let you guys decide and judge where it's at. But I didn't want to be lighthearted about it, casual about it. But then, you know, and I really didn't want to let those murderers off the hook in any way whatsoever, you know. And even though after watching my film, you may say, you know what, it was really, really weird, but I felt empathetic towards that SS officer. You know, if you've seen the film, you'll understand what I'm saying. You know, where you feel like, and that was in the script, so it was very scary for me to approach that. But you know, I felt that nobody's ever done that. You know, nobody's ever shown those people, and I say people because that's who they were. That's what that nobody's ever shown them as people. You know, they've shown them as these robots who barked orders, who shot, who were sadistic, who were monsters, essentially, in movies. And probably most of them were. There's no question about it. But I think it's much more horrific and thought-provoking to see somebody that's kind of like us, where we can see, you know, the human qualities, where they have a past, where they have a brother, where they have some kind of hope of a restaurant somewhere, you know, and kind of are a poet at heart, doing those things that they did. To me, it's like a kind of the first and giant Stanford experiment, you know, where you had, you know, people who were just in these, and it's a cautionary tale, I think, not just for the victims, because the victims, you know, we all know, there's no question we know what our people went through. There's no question we know how horrific it was and how unfair and tragic it all was. But the question is, who were those people that were doing that? I mean, Germany, you know, we all know, was one of the most civilized intellectual societies in the world at that time, you know, and liberal for that matter, you know, before Hitler came to power. And how did those people that voted liberal, as you know, it's kind of parallel to our world in a way in the States, you know, how did those people suddenly find themselves being the tool of these monsters who essentially grafted on an ideology onto the people, made them believe it. I'm not just talking about anti-Semitism, but this whole us against the world and you know, how they were slighted by the world after World War I and the economy and all that. And that's what birthed this you know, this event, you know, I call it an event because hopefully it'll never repeat again, you know, so that's why these films have to be made. So there you go, Al. Long answer to a short question.
Thank you. So I'm going to start off with a question of my own. And you mentioned this, you brought this up. I have not seen Jojo Rabbit, but of course, most of us, I think, have seen Life is Beautiful, the Italian movie that won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film, and I think for the Best Actor. Uh, and your movie and Life is Beautiful both uh, seem to be like fables or fairy tales set in the Holocaust. So I'm just curious whether that movie was any influence at all on your movie.
No, no.
No, it wasn't.
When I make movies, I know it's going to sound very pompous, but when I make films, I don't look at other films, as inspiration. I look at the actual events. I look at the screenplay that I have. If it's a novel, I look at the novel. I don't. No. As a matter of fact, I try and if there is something that's close to it, I try and avoid it. I'll tell you a little anecdote. Because of budget reasons in the script, and this is something this will back me up. I haven't seen Schindler's List to this day. I haven't seen this film. No, I've seen snippets of it, and scenes, but I haven't seen the whole film. Which is terrible to say, but I haven't. Maybe on purpose. And there was a scene in my script where when Koch, when Gilles leaves the camp and goes off with the column of people, to the death camps, that scene was actually written on a train platform. And there was a lot of train cars, and he's running from car to car and looking for him, and finds him and drags him out and takes him back to the camp. And I thought that was great. And then the producers, fortuitously, told me, we don't have the money to have the train, and they won't give us the train nor the platform where we were shooting, the budget reasons. So you're going to have to make do. I said, okay, well, let's have trucks or something. So they had trucks at first. Then they didn't have money for trucks anymore. Then we ended up with a column in the forest. But the point is, those are all like, realities of filmmaking. But the point is that my second AD, who has seen Schindler's List, said, it's a good thing you didn't have the train, because that scene was in Schindler's List. And I said, no way. And he said, yeah. And we went on YouTube, and he showed me the scene of running down the train platform, peeking into cars and trying to find Ben, Kingsley. And I said, oh my God, that is so damn lucky that I didn't, that I didn't film that again. So that's the answer. I never want to repeat. I never, it's like, it's already been done probably by better people than me. But, why would I take anything like that as inspiration? I think history is inspiration,
So I'm going to now jump to a question from David Alpern, and he asks, the filter lens used throughout the movie is quite dark. Besides the horrific camp environment, is there more you sought to subliminally convey with a dark resolution beyond grim sadness and hopelessness?
Yeah, not subliminally, very, very consciously. We avoided color, and me and my DP, my cameraman, we wanted earth tones. We wanted it to be very much a Dutch painting in a weird way, visually, with the contrast and with the darkness and all that. So yes, that is a very conscious choice.
Okay. You, how did you find the German short story that the movie is based on? And did you make any big changes in the original story for the movie?
Yeah, the original story, it was a very scary moment, because the screenwriter of the film, Iliad Sofen, he was inspired by some story that this is what he told us, me and the producers, that he had read when he was a youth in the Soviet Union, and he couldn't remember where, how, or what. And he didn't even call it a story. He called it like a news, newspaper article or whatever it was. or in some history books. And so we said, okay, great, that's wonderful. He said, he's an older guy, so that must have been somewhere in the 50s. And we already started production in Belarus, and there was already, the actors already paid, locations already booked. I'm there looking for locations. We're preparing the shoot. And my producer calls me in a panic and says, oh my God, our German partners, producing partners, found a short story that is exactly like our story. And we went, what? Like, what are you talking about? And 1952 in East Germany at that time, 52, 7 years after the war ended, a man named Wolfgang Kohlhause has written a story called Invention of a Language, which had, and this is why it was close, this is why it was scary, which had a prisoner in a camp teaching a couple, not a German, but a couple, another Jew, Farsi, fake Farsi, in order to survive. But it was extreme. It was like a 10-page story, because later I got a hold of it. It's actually published called The Invention of a Language by Wolfgang Kohlhause. It was very basic. I mean, it was just a concept itself. And it didn't have, which I think, which I think is what it's all about, really, what you guys have seen in the film. It had one man's survivor story, and to me, that would have been great. Hey, Yiddischer Kopf survived, a clever Jewish boy. He'd made up a language, remembered all these things. It didn't have the connection to the names that the film did. He just made up names and tried to remember them. And it certainly didn't have the reason for this survival, which becomes apparent at the end of the film, is to build a monument to the people who were burned twice. Once in the fireplace of the commandant of the camp, of the transit camp, and the other time in Auschwitz. So, and perished forever with those names and everything. So I added that. I added the names, and I added the device of how he learns the language, and I certainly added that's the important thing. And from the short story, there were two things that are in the film, literally two things, apart from the main concept. It's the name for a restaurant, which is Honor Done, because I kind of like the word. And it's the scene with the doctor, where he ends up with that doctor. That's it, because I kind of like that scene where he almost gives it away with the doctor.
Interesting. Okay, now I'm going to go to another question from David Alpern. The movie's journey to getting made was quite interesting, traversing multiple countries and languages. Can you share more about the unique journey to its creation, and if you ever nearly gave up hope that it would be made?
Yeah, I did actually. A year and a half of struggles to get some money to make it. It certainly, certainly concerned me at that time. And then I ended up bringing other producers, much more, involved producers who were brave enough and liked the material enough to. It was made independently. There was no studio, no nothing. Like a $4.5 million budget, which is extremely cheap for what it is, because it helped that we shot in Belarus, and where it's cheaper to shoot. And yeah, I mean, it's always with every project, even House and Fog, with every project I've had, there's always, that moment of despair where it's never going to happen, and it's somehow, if it's meant to be, it happens. And the journey was, I was given a script, not a very good script, as I said, it was a very basic retelling of that story, and that we mentioned, short story, the 10-page short story. And it had a lot of side stories, like the love affair of the commandant and some Jewish girl, which is quite banal, I thought. And it had and it had a horrifically bad ending, which I immediately excised from the script. And it was written in Russian. And, I'm lucky enough to know both languages, Russian and English. So I sat down and rewrote it. And added and made it my own, really. Can't say I made it good, but I thought I made it better, not great, but better. And I did it for myself, I did it. So yeah, there was a lot of work done. Journey was quite, as it always is, quite arduous. It's never easy. What the easy journey was? My first film. And I was very cocky and I said, oh, it's always going to be like that. And people who knew told me, oh, it's never going to be like that. I said, come on, it's always going to be like that. And they were right, it's always tough.
So David also asks, do you think the Academy's decision to exclude your film from eligibility, despite it most certainly being a foreign language film, because it did not include sufficient Belarus filmmakers, is a fair, legitimate excuse? Yeah, explain to us what happened.
We had a choice. We had three or four countries that were involved in the making of the film. It was Russia, Germany, Belarus, and France. We shot in Belarus. It was very nominal money from Belarus. It was like, if the budget was 3.4 million from Belarus, there was maybe 300,000 money from the government, from their film, whatever, Belarus film. And, it was but the whole crew was Belarus, most of the crew. The extras that you saw on the screen, the locations, the food, the dogs, the trucks. I mean, everything was shot in that country, essentially. It was shot by Russians, by Germans, by Americans, as I am. And so it was, we had a choice, maybe kind of a calculated choice, which always backfires when you start being too clever, of which country are we going to submit it from, to the Oscars. I mean, it was no question. And so we said, Germany, who the hell knows what they're making, what it's always like, Russia, we know it's always political with them. It's always whoever pays, to have it internally, to have it put in. So we didn't have the money to pay. And Belarus, why don't we? They have nothing really that year. Why don't we put it in from Belarus? And that was ultimately it was a mistake, because when we submitted it, and it was at the Golden Globes and all that, when we submitted it, it was received unbelievably well by the Academy. I mean, it was chosen out of the hundreds of films. We didn't get to the short list, but it was out of the hundreds of countries that were submitting their films, one film each. We had Deadline Hollywood. We had, a Hollywood Reporter, everybody doing interviews. And it was like touted, how the buzz starts, right? It was touted as like, holy cow, it's going to be like a shoo-in. This is going to be, especially with my, my first movie and my track record and all that, plus the theme, I don't think hurt anything either. And and then we get this, that there's not enough Belarus people in, the key creative roles. I mean, if we had a couple of actors in the main roles, all the extras were Belarus. Every single person you see in that kitchen and out at the picnic and all that were all Belarus. And so, and the crowds, of course, of the prisoners. So, the funny thing, and kind of like typically of my life, this thing is that this year, those rules changed. This was last year. This year, we would have been like, no problem. What matters, it's in a foreign language. That's it.
So it was they were specific written rules that said a certain percentage, they
of the country that is submitting has to be not only made in that country, which we
Right.
were, but there have to be people involved, such as writer, director, main actor, um, cameraman. We were all not Belarus. Everybody under us was Belarus, and the whole country was Belarus. So it was, but you know what? It doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter. I found that out after my first film, where this, I don't know if you've seen House, Sun and Fog, but objectively, it was probably the best film of the year. And, and then Lord of the Rings got all the glory that year, and the 11 Oscars or whatever. And it's just another thing. Any other year, it wouldn't have gotten that. And we would have, I never look at it that way. I never get discouraged or upset about that. I just think it's meant to be. The film will have its life. That's it. That's the thing that matters. I would have survived in a camp.
So speaking of House and Sand and Fog, starting with the very first feature that you made, you seem to have gone to sort of the dark side of life and experience. Does that resonate more with you? I know you did this Russian comedy episode or something like that. You could maybe tell us about that. But there's a dark side of humanity and human history and human life resonate more with you than other things.
I don't know what dark. I mean, listen, Kramer versus Kramer was a dark side. It's always about the dark side if you're not like jumping around singing songs. So for me, but even that, look at Les Miserables, that's pretty dark side too. They're just singing about it. I think that I like some of the themes keep recurring, the themes of who's good, who's bad. There's always that gray area. Who's the villain, who's the hero, always in my films, like in the first one and this one. Very much so. Themes of morals and decency, as in my second film and the Russian TV series.
Tell us a little bit about the second film.
Second film was Uma Thurman and Evan Rachel Wood, called The Life Before Her Eyes, which was, I thought it was a really good film. But I did, honestly. And it wasn't, I learned a lot from that film. It wasn't so well received by the critics. And so I decided that I was being too clever for my own good in my second film. I needed to show that the first one wasn't a fluke. And so I built too much into it, that actually it's all logical and it works, but people don't go to movies to think, they go to movies to feel and to be taken on a ride somewhere, whether it's emotional, whether it's about tears or laughter or horror, it doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what the genre is, but to make them think. They do enough of that at work and in their real life. And so, I was too clever for my own good, as I said. It's a great film though. If you guys want to see it, it's a wonderful film, I thought. With that in mind, it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle. It's one of those puzzles.
Give it just a brief synopsis or so that people know what you're talking about. The theme of the movie, just a general theme.
It's about the impetus, the event is the high school shooting, high school in a small town. And there's two best friends, 16-year-old girls, who are present at that shooting. And they're given a choice, who is going to be shot and who's going to live of the two of them by the killer. And that's what I mean about morals, And one of them says, kill her, because she's afraid for her life, as humans quite often are. Not many of us are heroes. And plus, I think all heroes are kind of stupid, to tell you the truth. And so she does that. She makes that choice. And we flash forward to her life 15 years later. And she's living horrific existence, a perfect existence in Connecticut. Suburban housewife, child, husband, and her life starts collapsing around her and essentially disappearing. The child disappears. The husband becomes unfaithful and also disappears. The flowers are wilting in her garden. The meat is rotting in her fridge. All these things start happening to her, and we don't understand why that's happening. And in the end, we realized that this is, it's not a spoiler to tell you, because I think you'll enjoy the film anyway. In the end, we realized that she didn't make that choice. And this was a life that flashed in front of her eyes, and the film is called The Life Before Her Eyes, that flashed in front of her eyes of a life that would have been if she did make that choice.
So it's like incident at Owl Creek Ridge.
Very much. Al, very good. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, a modern day.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were saying that you do some comedy stuff. For instance, this.
I'm a very funny guy in life.
Okay, so this Russian. So this Russian series. Tell us about it. First of all, let me ask you: is it streaming anywhere in the United States with subtitles, or can we see it?
I have it with subtitles. It's streaming in Russia with subtitles. It's streaming in Russian.
Right.
If any of the people at this webinar want to see it, write me. I'll send you a copy. You'll love it. It's a wonderful 16 episode limited series that has amazing actors in it. It's hilarious and sad, and it won every award there is. Best director, best actress.
This was in Russia, right?
Yeah, I shot it in Russia.
Yeah.
So
okay, so
it's about a woman who has a husband. It's about a woman who has a husband and 3 lovers. So modern day in Russian reality, but it's not that lighthearted. So it is a comedy, but it's not a farce.
Okay, so what we're going to do is everybody who's watching that is interested, email Dana or me, and let us know if you want it, and then we'll arrange with Vadim to get a hold of it, because I definitely will be one of those. I want to.
You'll love it. It's one of those very, very funny and bittersweet things about this woman, who at first is all cocky about it and all that, and then it just starts, she learns a really good lesson.
Okay, so another moral tale.
Anybody else have questions apart from David Alpern? Those are good questions, David.
Okay, Dana, are there any other questions that have come in yet?
No, I don't see any other questions that have come in yet. So
we're just lurking.
Yeah, I think
watching us.
I think David has been asking, and I've been asking the questions that other people want to ask, so that we've been taken their place for a while. So okay, so while we're waiting, I'll ask you another thing that you were also talking about, the whole process of how this film. I still remember. I think it was David Putnam, the producer of Chariots of Fire, who I don't know if it was at the Academy Awards or someplace. Maybe it was at the Academy Awards, where in a speech he talked about how the thing he regretted most was there's some scenes in the film that most people would not know about that he had to do because he didn't have enough money. And if he had enough money, he would have done them right. So I'd like to ask you about, you've made films in several different languages with crews from different countries. Is the process basically the same? When are there different ways of doing things that you have to adapt to depending on the language, like in Belarus, the crew, the locations, any unusual kinds of experiences?
No, that's all trivial. But you know, I'll tell you one thing, that David Putnam was absolutely wrong. And if I may say so, you know, I think that whatever you make is right. You know, what you thought you would make is you don't know whether that would be right or not. You know, so here's how it works for me, because I write my screenplays, I direct the films, and I edit the movie actually hands-on too. You know, with an editor, but then I do the fine tuning. And I have to always wear 3 hats. And so when I write the film, I'm free as a bird. You know, I'm sitting there writing, and I don't care about budget, and I don't care which actors are going to play this. And I don't care whether it's going to rain that day. I just write rain, you know. And it's perfect. It really is at that point. It is at 100%, especially if I work really hard and I care about it on this screenplay. Then you get to the set, hopefully, and now you're a director. You're not a writer anymore because everything is already written. You're the director. And what happens is it's a horrific series of disappointments constantly that you have to manage. It's raining and the actor doesn't show up, or he's drunk, or you know, they take away your train and trucks and all that, you know. So it's a constant series of disappointments, and you manage, and you try and keep it up close to that 100 while you're doing it, and you end up maybe luckily around the low 90s or high 80s. And then in the edit, you try and get it back to 100. You know, and that's what the trick is. And there is power in the edit room to get it back to 100. That's what's interesting. And so, but I always feel that, and that's what I thought, just so you know, before, it's 100 all the time. It is what it is. You know, and being, oh my God, I wish we would have done that. And I wish that happened or didn't happen. That's just being a nudge, I think. You know, you have to, it's a living organism, something like that has so many factors that you cannot control, you know, and you have to accept it. And quite often, really, really good surprises happen, not just disappointments, you know, where you go, oh my God, I didn't think of that, you know, where the actor gives you something, or the fog in this film, you know, when he's escaping the camp, that was real fog. It just happened. And we didn't know how to film it. We didn't know where to film it because it was garages, red garages from the 60s, literally 200 meters behind that fog. We didn't know which way to, like, how's he going to escape from this camp? It was this old building that was shot in, but we didn't have an escape from this camp where he was going to truck that little cart out. And one morning I showed up on the set. We were supposed to shoot something else, interiors at that time. I showed up early and I went, oh my God, everybody get going. Let's get this little cart. The cart wasn't ready. Let's get it changed. Let's shoot this, because the fog was literally, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And I said, this is perfect. Escapes into the fog. You know, those things happen. I couldn't have written, I didn't write fog, you know, and if I smoked it up and made it, try and make it look like fog, it would have looked terrible and fake. All right, so I see questions here.
We have a few questions. Do you want to just go
How
ahead?
did I find the actors? The actors are always found with, should I press answer live, I guess? Yeah, the actors are always found in, you know, through the casting process. You know, the main actors were brought to my attention. I didn't know either one of them by the casting directors. And then I sit and I look through many of their past works and auditions ultimately. And I have a chat with them on Skype or whatever at that time, because they're usually in other countries. Noel, who played Gilles, the prisoner, he's Argentinian. You know, He didn't speak a word of German in
Wow.
real life. He spoke German phonetically.
Wow.
That's how amazing he is. And Lars, who played the Nazi, they lived together in one little hotel where we shot. And Lars every night taught him how to speak German. And then on the set and on the screen, Noel taught Lars how to speak fake Farsi, which was quite, kind of a, yeah. So the actors were found, thankfully, and I think they're really great. David asks again, are the subtitles of the comedy series in Russian or hopefully in English too? Well, obviously in English because it was shot in Russian. So the subtitles. The next project, I will stay independent because studios don't make good films anymore, honestly. He's asking whether my next film will be a studio film like House Sun and Fog, which was a unique studio film, really. We kind of squeaked in under the wire there, where they stopped making films like that. Even DreamWorks and studios like this, or stay independent. Yeah, independent, I think, and possibly European, hopefully. Although I am signing a deal actually today on an American movie that shoots in Latvia and New York, and it's a cool film, but I can't really talk about it yet. But it's going to be, imagine a sequel to House Sand and Fog, bizarrely so, which I never thought would happen. So that's cool. That's independent. And this is about Vadim's POV in American movie culture in general. Well, I just said it. Yeah, actually, the movie generated more than 4 million already. The question is, which is about my POV on American movie culture in general. The movie has generated more than 4 million in global box office. It's actually generated more. It's close to 8 now. Mostly outside the USA because it hasn't premiered in USA yet. It's probably going to premiere in January, late January, because I'm going to premieres in New York and Miami in the theaters, which is incredible, I think. Do you foresee a day when foreign language films such as yours have a good chance to pocket healthy box office earnings in the United States? No, I don't. I don't see it in the theaters. No, because people just don't go see them, unfortunately. They should, but they don't. They go see, Marvel movies and those kinds of films. No, because, do I foresee a day when McDonald's is not the most popular restaurant? No. You know what I mean? I don't foresee that day in America or actually any country. Has Netflix openness to global content made it easier for directors like you, content in German and other languages, to make a business case for your content in America? Well, as I said, the business case for my content in America is, it's valid, obviously. It has a lot of caveats and conditions, that you have to make something and you have to kind of bend it towards mass consumption. I think, not that I make such experimental abstract movies that I think, oh, it's not for Americans. It's just that, again, they don't want to think and they don't really want to feel that much. They want to feel, they want to go, oh, things blew up real good. That's what they want to see. My content in America, I hope so, David. I really hope that, I'll get the chance to make it. And yeah, Netflix and other streamers, they are open to it. But I think that they're open to it. Openness to global content, as you say, is literally their effort to fill their schedule, to fill their time, their slate. They pay very little for it. Netflix, that's apart from their originals that they make, for something that's made in Europe or wherever around the world, they'll pay very nominal fee just to stick it in, just so their subscribers can say, oh, look at all this stuff.
Looks
kind
like
of a cynical view. Al, you need to turn on your microphone and camera.
It looks like we have one more question from Eileen. Were there
I
any
see it. I
problems?
see it.
Okay, yeah.
The problem is with the crew as they were used doing one thing and you wanted another, always. Always, 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 always. You know what? I'll tell you a little metaphor that I say sometimes in interviews. I don't know if you'll understand it, but if I was an artist and I sat there at home and drew with a pencil, I was a damn good artist. I could draw like a face, you know, beautifully shaded, beautifully done. And here I'm drawing with literally a 30-foot pencil, which I can't live by myself. And it has, maybe 20 people lifting it up, hoisting it up. And I have to verbally, and maybe show them a picture of what I want, but it doesn't matter, screenplay. I have to verbally tell them, okay, a little to the left, press harder, and they try and coordinate all their efforts. And it's always fraught with disappointments. But I'd persevere, leaving a lot of my health and blood out there. Did I answer your question, Eileen? That metaphor?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, and I know it's late. It's very late there right now.
Quarter
And
to 11 at night.
yeah, it's late. If anyone has any other questions, or if there's anything that you think that, any bits that you think we should know about, like, the ins and
Nobody
outs.
ever told me whether you liked the film. Not that I need the compliment,
Well,
but
I really enjoyed
I know
it.
you did, but all the people that are the lurkers, did you
Yeah,
like
the
the
lurkers,
film?
tell us if you like the film, put it into the chat. One thing I found really interesting, especially that you talked about at the beginning, was the, making the SS soldier relatable in a way. And I found that really interesting, and also, a lot more interesting to have that sort of empathy. And he's a real person, like you said. I
Scarier,
really, what'd you say?
scarier.
It's much scarier that way.
Scarier.
And yeah, I mean, I found that really interesting, that relationship with them, and that, he's not just, he's a monster, but he's not just a monster. Like you said, he's depth to his character. So
There's no just a monster.
no,
in the
it
world.
couldn't be, right?
There's no just a saint either, to me. There's just, we're just people. And doesn't excuse it at all,
No.
No. As
Well,
Chris Rock said, it's a very unpolitically correct phrase. He said about O.J. Simpson, he says, "Oh, I know what he did was wrong, but I understand." And it's really it's very profound in a way, Yeah.
definitely. Well, we loved the film. We loved it very much. If you're getting some comments there as well. There. David was saying that they're on the selection committee and that they screen a lot of films. I think they screened like
Good.
like 28, 29
Thank
films.
you. Thank you very much. Love the film. Yeah, good.
Yeah,
Yeah, very much into the movie. Yeah, wonderful. 2,000 films was a good choice. Good choice. That's good. Okay.
Yeah, no, and also it's actually interesting. So when we screen the films, the committee has like a graph of like where they rank everything, and that your film was, we have like the best, is it a good, how was the film overall? What's the Jewish content? Do we think it's a good choice for the festival? And yours was one of the easiest ones because it was up at the top for everything. So
Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
well, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening for you, this morning for us. And I will be emailing you with some people that want to watch your show.
Yeah, let's do. I'll send them a link.
And just thank you very much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. And we appreciate you sharing this very important film with us as well.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Vadim.